Welcome to Wichita Liberty TV with Bob Weeks.
Hello, I'm Bob Weeks for Wichita Liberty TV, your weekly source for news, analysis, and commentary about Wichita and Kansas government and public policy. We're broadcast on KGPT channel 26.1, also its companion website, kgpt26.com. Some of you know me for my blog, The Voice for Liberty, that's on the internet at wichitaliberty.org. The motto there is individual liberty, limited government, and free markets in Wichita and Kansas. I cover things that may not be covered by other news media in Wichita and Kansas. Or, if we do cover the same news, I'll do it from the perspective of economic freedom, limited government, and individual liberty, because these are the things that are important to us, and these are the things that we find so often under attack by our government, be it at the federal, state, or local level. So, please visit wichitaliberty.org. You can subscribe to the email newsletter I send a couple times a week. If you'd like to contact me, you'll find my email address and telephone there, or just remember bob.weeks@gmail.com. Well, this week on Wichita Liberty TV, to start off our second year, I thought I'd invite two of my favorite local activists to the Wichita Liberty TV studios. Both are an inspiration to me. John Todd and Susan Estes of Americans for Prosperity, Kansas. Susan is field coordinator for AFP, and John is volunteer coordinator. I should mention that I've accepted scholarships from AFP to attend events that AFP has produced in Washington and other areas. I've also made financial contributions to AFP, small as they may be, and I've supplied volunteer service to AFP that I hope AFP valued. Let's watch my interview with John Todd and Susan Estes. Susan Estes, John Todd, welcome to Wichita Liberty TV. Viewers of this show know that last year I received an award from the Kansas Policy Institute for my work supporting individual liberty and economic freedom. John, I shared that award with you. I was quite honored. So let me start with you. When I first met you about 10 years ago, you had already been involved in politics and activism for some time. What got you started down the path you're on?
Well, you mentioned economic freedom. Probably the first issue that I got involved with was kind of by accident. Around 1996, the Kansas Association of Realtors was promoting a new license act that, oddly enough, gave large real estate companies a competitive advantage over small ones. Mm-hmm. And I happened to be one of the owners of a small company. And so we got involved. We organized probably 30, 40 people, went to Topeka, and started testifying and taking groups. And we were successful. Not totally, but we had some success. Mm-hmm. So that's really kind of how it got started.
I know also you're the vice president of the Wichita Pachyderm mm-hmm. Club, so I know you're in charge of producing a program each week. Pachyderm Club has speakers from all walks of life: governors, senators, book authors, mm-hmm. candidates for small offices, government bureaucrats. Do you have any funny stories you can tell us about what it takes to get these people to come to the Wichita Pachyderm Club to speak? And you don't have to name names.
Well, I would like to sit here and with candidly say I don't bribe them to come. Mm-hmm. I'm teasing about that. Actually, it's interesting because it's rare when someone refuses or turns mm-hmm. me down. We've kind of developed the reputation of the place to go. Mm-hmm. And you talk about the amusing stories. I thought about this quite a bit today. And I was down with my wife down in Winfield, Kansas. We were looking for the Stone Arch Bridge down there, mm-hmm. and that went over across the Walnut River down there to the poor farm. They used to, in the 30s and 40s, they had poor farms around. We couldn't find the bridge, and so we stopped at the McDonald's down there, powder our nose, and get a cup of coffee, senior coffee, of course. Yeah. And there was a fellow at his computer having a cup of coffee, and I got to chatting to him. He says, I'm a historian. He said, I've never heard of this bridge, but together he helped us figure out where it was located, and we found it. Well, make a long story short, I was chit-chatting with him and found out that he was writing a book. He was considered one of the experts on Dwight David Eisenhower, mm-hmm. and he had a book that was going to be released in a matter of a period of time. And on the way back to Wichita, I thought I contacted him and he agreed to come and speak at Pachyderm. So
remember that he spoke twice, did he, or 2 times? I
he
think
did.
So.
The first time was on his book, and the second time was exceptional. I thought it was Eisenhower's leadership capabilities, and how he was the first president to have a chief of staff, and how he organized the White House.
Okay. Well, Susan, you work for Americans for Prosperity here in Wichita. That is a national group. I think Kansas was one of the first states to have a chapter of Americans for Prosperity. What is AFP? What does it do? What does it stand for?
Well, first, you are correct. We are one of the first states, and John is the original volunteer across the entire nation. AFP is committed to educating citizens about economic policy and mobilizing people to act. The 3 things that we really focus on the most are cutting taxes and government spending in order to slow down the encroachment of government. The second thing that we do is try to remove unnecessary barriers to entrepreneurship, help people be able to freely get into engaging in entrepreneurship and creating prosperity for themselves. And the third thing that we take a look at is restoring fairness in our judicial system.
And I think AFP promotes itself or describes itself as a grassroots political organization. You've held official party positions, chair of the Sedgwick County Republican Party. That's a party position if there ever was, I guess. Now you're involved in grassroots politics. Is there a difference? Does it make a difference? What are the differences?
In the sense of grassroots work, it's very much the same. There's a lot of getting out in hard-earned shoe leather, knocking on doors, talking to people, and finding out what they're involved in. But it is also very different. We don't engage in electioneering, so we're not out promoting a candidate. We're out promoting policies. And I really love having that be the focus of what I do.
And I think each year AFP holds a summit, Defending the American Dream Summit, I call it. It's usually been in Washington, but this year, Dallas, Texas. So that's real close to us here. Tell us about that and what type of things will happen at the summit.
Well, the Defending the American Dream Summit is absolutely one of my favorite events. We are going to go to Dallas this year, August 29th and 30th. We'll be taking a bus trip from here.
So that's the weekend of Labor Day, isn't it?
It is. It's the Friday and Saturday before Labor Day. We'll be taking a bus here from Wichita. And if people would like to come, we have more information on our website, defendingthedream.com, or they can email me at sestes@afphq.org. And I know that's kind of a mouthful, but it's a great event. Main Street meets Capitol Hill. Everybody shares the same passion for free markets and policy. Great speakers. Some of the best training you're going to find in the United States. Arthur Brooks, Governor Perry, Governor Pence are just a few of the confirmed speakers.
You know, Arthur Brooks, I know he was there last year at the summit in Orlando that I attended, and I showed a video by Arthur Brooks on this show a little while ago. So that sounds like a great thing. So, and I think because it's in Dallas, it's not going to be very expensive. I think is the trip just staying one night? Is that right?
We'll be looking, I think, at 2 nights in a hotel, but we've worked out a package deal. Hop on our bus here in Wichita, head on down to Dallas and back. A couple of meals included in that. Great programming and wonderful events. The rumors that are going around are true. There is a mechanical bull, and it is your chance to see me voluntarily look crazy on the bull. And we'll just have a lot of fun. It's a great family event, and we've kept the pricing down very reasonable.
And I think usually most years there's several thousand people in attendance, aren't there? So
they are. It's a large event. It's your chance to meet people from around the country who share your passions.
And a lot of fun. I know 2 years ago was it, I think, in a presidential election year. I mean, Mitt Romney was there, Herman Cain was there. So it's really a stop by a lot of people seeking office, but very interesting people to hear. And I think also it's interesting that a lot of the times these people are different in person than they are when they appear on television, even though they know that people are taking video, and I think AFP puts a lot of the video from those events up there. Okay. Let's turn to some policy issues. The three of us have testified, as John mentioned, for a long time, in his case, before the city council, school boards, county commissions, the state legislature, and so forth. Do you think we're doing any good? What's it like to go there and testify in front of the city council in particular?
I think we do a lot of good. And I think it's an interesting opportunity for the city to hear from citizens, and I encourage people to go. A lot of people are really afraid, they're intimidated, or they don't like to speak in public. So I think the fact that they go should mean a lot and say a lot. For every person who does go, there are many, many more at home who don't go. It's a chance for the council to figure out what people are thinking. And the more that we can get people to go and ask questions, the more questions get answered. And I think at the end of the day, we end up with a better level of trust. And when a council will give robust, transparent answers to questions.
Now, I know that sometimes the positions we take don't always coincide with the mayor in particular, but he does, I think, do a good job, to his credit, of letting citizens speak on almost any agenda items. Some things, they're called quasi-judicial. The public doesn't get to speak. That's part of the statute or something. Some things are mandated public hearings where the public must be allowed to speak, but many of the things are not. They're just agenda items, but the mayor still lets people speak, and I think does a pretty even-handed job of that. So we should be thankful for that.
Absolutely, and I also think their recent decision not to move forward with an item when there wasn't time for this city to respond to people's questions, and in this case it happened to be yours. I think that was a very good thing for the city to do. Slow down, give people a chance to ask questions, and it's important for them to answer, and it's also important for citizens to participate.
Yeah, and I think we did run through some of that video last week or the week before here on Wichita Liberty TV. So,
and I mentioned that you don't always feel that you've had a lot of success right at the end, but you have to keep in mind that there are people watching at home on the video, the television channel 7, I believe it is, and you'll have people that all week long. So I saw you on channel 7. And I agree with what you had to say. So
yeah, and the video, of course, is on the city's website. And I know right now that it doesn't really work on mobile devices, but I know about a month ago the city's going to upgrade some of their systems, and we should have a more ability to observe those city council meetings. So, well, we need to take a couple moments off for a commercial break. So we'll be back with Wichita Liberty TV in just a moment. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks, and with me today, Susan Estes and John Todd. And John, you've worked, I know, both for large corporations and for yourself in the role of an entrepreneur. You've got some observations there that I think have some application to government, too. Tell us about that, if you would.
Well, my experience working for 2 large corporations, they're huge, they're inefficient. Probably the main thing, I consider corporations second in inefficiency only to government. And the primary reason is because the middle management and the folks along the line have no skin in the game. Versus a small private entrepreneur who risks his own capital, puts his own time and energy into trying to add value to goods and services, and there's a big difference. And therefore, the small business is much more efficient and better at creating jobs than the large corporations.
And I think also incentives play a big role there too. For example, the topic I want to talk about, the proposed sales tax increase to the city of Wichita. You know, it really, I observed the city manager when he had one of these white papers a couple months ago, talked about, we found out we can do Wichita street maintenance more efficiently. With the same amount of money, they could get more lane miles done every year of maintenance and things like that. And that I think kind of plays into what you said, John, that, the government bureaucrats, they don't really have any skin in the game. And I know viewers, I've shown the streetlights on in the middle of the day in Wichita a few times here recently. Well, yeah, the bureaucrat, they're not spending their own money, so why should they go out of their way to make sure the lights are not burning in the middle of the day?
Well, if you have no skin in the game, it's out of the public taxpayers' treasury. Why should you really be too concerned about exercising the type of stewardship you would do if it was your money?
Exactly, yeah. So, speaking of our money versus government money, the City Council has taken, I guess we could call it preliminary steps, or at least indicated their desire to have the people of Wichita vote in November probably to increase the sales tax by 1 cent per dollar. I don't want to say 1% because it's 1 cent per dollar. It's really going from 7.15 to 8.15, which is like 15% increase or something like that. I don't have that number there. So why is the City Council going to ask us to vote on this? Why, Susan, can't the City Council just raise the sales tax itself?
Actually, Kansas law says they have to bring it to us as citizens, and it's our chance to speak up, and we should speak loudly and often in this circumstance. We very much have a big impact as citizens on this decision.
Well, that's good. I wonder who wrote that law up there. I'll have to thank them for that because, yeah, that's a good law that cities, when they want to raise sales tax, they have to ask for a vote. And I think one of the arguments we're given by the City Council is that many of the smaller cities surrounding Wichita, Derby, Andover, whatever, they've raised their sales tax recently to pay for a variety of things. For Mulvane, I think they've raised it to pay for a library or something like that. So is that a compelling argument that because other people raise their sales tax, we should too?
I don't think so. Having spent most of my life, career-wise, in sales and marketing, if you have a lesser price on something, if you have a lower sales tax, that's a competitive advantage. You should be out marketing that.
Well, and they do use the thing, it's just a penny per dollar, but you know, I think you've talked to some automobile dealers, and when you're talking about $25,000 cars, something that adds up.
And it really bothers me when people say it's just. Some people, you know, in past elections, people have talked about, oh, it's just the price of a Starbucks once a week. That argument leaves out the whole idea that people can afford Starbucks. There's a lot of people who can't, and we're asking them to do more. And we're not looking at the sum total. The sum total on this is $78 to $80 million a year that isn't going to be spent at stores that are here in Wichita and around us. So when we say, oh, great, we're going to go give an incentive to this new store and they're going to hire 40 new people, we feel good about that. But we forget the other side of the story that means, okay, well, that's 78 to 80 million that's not going to the other stores, and we don't even have a way to track and measure the growth and jobs that are impacted by moving that money from one place to another. We haven't really created any jobs. Yeah, we've just picked a winner.
We've talked a lot about this on Wichita Liberty TV in past episodes, that it's from Henry Hazlitt's famous book, as illustrated by Amanda Billyrock we did, but it's the seen versus the unseen. It's the concentrated benefits versus dispersed costs. And that's exactly right, Susan. The concentrated benefits are easy to see, and government makes sure that we see it. They have groundbreaking ceremonies, ribbon-cutting ceremonies. City Television Channel 7, they'll play, you know, over and over the speeches made at these type of things. But the cost of it spread out over everywhere. So people may lose their jobs. One guy here, a waitress may have her hours cut by a few hours. Don't really know why, but there's just not that much business anymore because people don't have that much to spend.
When you add up the impact of that 1 cent sales tax on a family, it adds up. And so then families have to make a choice. Do I pay more here, or do I save my money here because my sales tax is going up? So take me as an example. I have to choose between how I coordinate my budget to afford a new roof. Maybe I don't do the new roof because I can no longer afford to. So the loser in our scenario becomes the local roofing companies. And we don't know how many jobs they weren't able to offer because they didn't grow, because people had to direct their money somewhere else.
Yeah, that's definitely a big problem. And before we take our next break, you know, one of the things we used the sales tax, Sedgwick County did, to pay for the Intrust Bank Arena in downtown Wichita. That tax, the statute called for 30 months, 2.5 years, I believe that is. And yes, the sales tax did end as scheduled. It seems that what the city council may recommend to us in Wichita is a 5-year tax. Do you think it'll go away in 5 years, or will we be, I think I remember one county commissioner saying, you know, people of Sedgwick County, you're used to paying that 1 cent. Think of all the other stuff we could do if we just kept that sales tax going.
Based on comments that certain council members made one day when they were discussing it, I think they will honor the 5-year period. However, the catch is, I think they plan to immediately ask for another 5-year period and then another 5-year period.
Well, yeah, that'll probably do. And that happened in Oklahoma City, where I think they've reauthorized that sales tax a couple times, the voters have. So let's take another commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at what are some of the things that the City Council wants to do with the extra sales tax revenue. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks with Susan Estes and John Todd. Susan, the city is asking voters, or recommending to voters, that we increase our sales tax by 1 cent per dollar, thought to bring up around $78 or $80 million of extra revenue per year. What are the city's plans for this money?
Well, based on an Eagles coverage of the council's last public discussion about how they would use this money, they talked about 63% or $250 million going towards water, 20% or $80 million going towards a job fund, 10% or $40 million going towards transit, and 7%, which would be $28 million, going towards streets.
And for streets, I think we're just talking about maintenance. We're not talking about new streets. Is that right?
I think that's the gist of it. I do hear conversations now and then about a few roads that aren't paved that they would like to see paved, but most of it's towards maintenance.
Yeah. And the water, you know, last year we were really worried about water, and the city threatened to fine people up to $1,000 a month for using excess water. Never mind the difficulty in determining what's excess. But then it started raining. Matter of fact, it flooded last summer, and that took some of the pressure off of it. And this year so far we've had quite a bit of rain too. So do you think people really see water as an urgent need, John?
Absolutely, I think they do, and I think that I think maybe that's part of the reason why it's being included in this sales tax thing.
Kind of scare people you know, we don't want to run out of drinking water, and we wouldn't run out of drinking water. We might run out of water to water our lawns, and wash your car every day. But you had an editorial or a letter in the Wichita Eagle not long ago that talked about what's a better way to pay for a water source rather than a sales tax.
Well, in the article, I said it strikes me that people and businesses that use water should pay for the water they use. I mean, it's a user fee. That's fair, in my opinion. And the
mechanism for that would be through the water bill. Is that right?
And based on the article that the Eagle published, without the sales tax, it would increase my water bill about 5%. So on a $50 bill, it's $2. 5 times 5 is $2.50. If I had a $20 water bill, it'd be $1. I had much rather pay that to have a good, solid, stable water supply for the future than pay 1% for everything that I buy, including groceries.
Yeah, because that would be a lot more than that. So,
and it's interesting what you say, John, because one of the arguments for a sales tax is out-of-towners will pay it. But listening to you, it strikes me that if you own a restaurant and your water bill goes up, you're going to be passing that on to your customers, and when out-of-towners are here, they're still going to be paying for that. I think that's a little bit of a red herring issue.
And, you know, we just added 2.75% to our hotel bills in Wichita. Right. I think that tax is probably just about, or it may already be starting to be collected. Don't you hate it when you go to other towns? I remember when I used to travel on business to New Orleans and rent a car at the airport, there was like a $5 recycling fee or something like that. These type of things just enrage us. But the city council thinks it's a good policy to get other people to pay for things like that.
It's the kind of thing that makes you say, ouch, I really don't like the city as much as I thought I did. I may have enjoyed my stay, but I don't like getting it socked to me.
Well, by paying for the water I use, then I have control over over the cost.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I have no control over how they use that 1% sales tax.
Yeah, if we could have a fund, where those revenues are dedicated for the water source, that was easier to do when the money comes in off of water bill payments than just general sales tax.
And there's another interesting factor. This report was the most attractive option, is what my numbers were based on. So why aren't we just doing the attractive option? They're looking at 2 or 3 other options. So they're saying we've got several options. We don't know how we're going to solve this water problem. Mm-hmm. If you'll just vote us money, we promise you we're going to solve this problem.
Now, there are some upcoming events really over this next week where citizens can learn and become more involved. One thing I know, I've talked about it last week, is on July 17th, it will be sponsored by Kansas Policy Institute about water. And I think Art Hall's presentation will be fascinating because he's going to show us, I think, how there can be private sector solutions that the City Council doesn't even think. You can go to kansaspolicy.org to sign up for that. But Susan, AFP's got some things coming up. Would you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Monday night, July 14th. The public is welcome to join us at Spangles. We're going to take a look in just kind of a conversational way at a lot of the different plans that are out there, because to date the city has not said, here's the water plan we like, here's what we're going to do. And I think it's important for the public to know all the options that are on the table. We're not here to recommend something, this is the right one, that's the wrong one, but we are here to educate people and let people speak up as part of that process.
So that's in the meeting room at the Spangles at Kellogg and Broadway, is that right?
It sure is, and Spangles doesn't make you order, but a lot of people really enjoy that it's half-price burger night.
So yeah, I recommend the chili cheeseburger.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun, and John and I run that meeting, and we'd love to see your viewers there.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to do. And then what's the future? I think sometime in August will the City Council vote to decide whether to or whether not to place the issue on the November ballot?
There's a preliminary vote on July 29th where they will iron out the phrasing. Then they'll come back on August 5th and make a final vote, yes or no. So now is a really important time for the public to be involved. We're going out, we're doing a lot of door knocking and speaking to people at the door and over the phone through our phone banks, and we would love to have your viewers to help on that. They can register to be a volunteer at iamafp.com, or they can email me directly. We'd love to have them help us go out, because I think the city has made an earnest effort to do a lot of community engagement, and I think they're very frustrated that they have low participation. And I think a lot of times you have to go out to where the people are and just talk directly to people and help get them engaged. It's awfully hard to reach people these days.
Yeah, and we've had some experience, I think, with at the Pachyderm Club, the city manager presented, and there were quite a few people there that day, and I think they had about 100 of those meetings, and then they've had lots of meetings since then, but whether they actually do any good or not, I just don't know. So I think we're out of time for today. It seems to go by awful quickly, but I do thank you, John Todd, Susan Estes, for coming in today. It's Americans for Prosperity, and I think you can see the email addresses and so forth on your screen. Of course, at the Voice for Liberty, wichitaliberty.org, you'll find lots of information about these issues and others. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. I'm Bob Weeks.